Welcome, welcome, very, very much to Conversation. A really distinct personal honor and privilege. Welcome to the program, dear friend of mine and a good deal of the world, particularly the caring part of the world in particular, and that's being Pamela Timmins. And Pamela Timmins is relatively new to the Manhattan Neighborhood Network family. Of course, everyone seems new to me, having been there for so very long. But Pamela, welcome so very, very much to Conversations. And I would say she's the producer of a program, Clearwater Nation, and she's got an awful lot to say, and welcome so very, very much to Conversations.
Thanks, Harold.
We shared a very interesting weekend along with other people who were involved with events upstate and so forth. But I wonder if maybe we got a whole hour, okay?
Right.
And maybe you could share with myself and with the audience your own personal background, and that would be like where you were born and raised. I know, having visited your house there, that it is the house that just, as I would say, screams of real artistry and an artist and so forth. But could you share your own background, born and raised a little bit, and then let's talk about the human condition, and particularly we want to talk about this two-row wampum and the events that are going on just as we talk now on the 8th of August 2013. But share your own background, please.
Yeah, all right. Well, I'm a native New Yorker, born and raised in New York City, and spent some time in New Jersey, and now upstate. And my focus of Clearwater Nation is following community events that are bringing forth sustainability from Manhattan up to Albany.
I see.
So this two-row wampum renewal campaign fits right in. So when they asked me to do an introduction for public access, I was very glad to meet them on the shoreline of Kingston Point, and the canoes did a test run.
Yeah.
And right now, at this very moment, they're on the Hudson River, paddling toward New York. And tomorrow they'll be arriving at Pier 96.
That's on the 9th, all right?
Yeah, there's a couple hundred canoes in this event, and they will be at West 57th Street greeting the public. So the public's, welcome to come down and meet the Onondaga Nation and the allies of the Onondaga Nation.
Well, we'll get that, but I mean, back to your beginning. I mean, you are a really fine artist, both figurative and that. And your family setting was one that encouraged artistic, or your mother and father and your siblings and that kind of stuff. I mean, if you could share because you are a very fine artist.
And
you have an art sensibility, Could you share a little of that? I mean, your family setting in that.
Well, my mother was a painter and a writer.
Right.
And so she was really my mentor at first.
What a wonderful person to have as your mentor.
Yes.
Yeah. That is interesting.
It was. And she also was a horseback rider.
Okay, you're equestrian as well?
Yes, and she taught me how to ride horses. And
what do they call it, dressage? Or?
I studied dressage.
Dressage.
Yes.
And you could jump over?
I learned how to jump horses.
Did you ever have a horse of your own?
Yeah, I have. What I really enjoy is trail riding.
Okay,
Yeah, because I so appreciate nature and the beauty of nature, so I do the trail riding, and I find motifs for paintings.
Yeah, and your mother encouraged you in painting and that sort of thing. And you do figurative, but you also do abstract, right?
Yeah.
Which do you prefer? And what do you like? Water? Do you like oil? Do you like to work large, small, or a little of your own work? Because you've got
love it all. It depends on how I'm feeling and what I want to convey. But I've done a tremendous amount of drawing, and I've made small etchings. And then I've also worked with watercolor and oil painting. So I've made very large oil paintings.
Watercolor is much more fluid. It's more soft, it seems to me. And you like to work in oil or acrylic? Or?
Oil paints.
Oil?
Yeah.
And do you generally work large, or do you work all sizes? I mean, large or?
Yeah, all sizes. And I start abstractly, and then I build it up to something it can be very realistic, or somewhere in between. I can work from my imagination, and I can work with what I see.
Yeah, and so you do draft. Do you have a figurative outline that you go and then fill in the color, or how does it, or do you ever just start putting paint on a canvas and just let it come by its own?
I've done that.
You've done.
Yeah.
It's more abstract or expressionist or something.
It's very abstract,
Yeah.
and then you can build it into something figurative.
And you were born in New York, you said, but you have a love of nature.
Yes.
Would that New York is not the best place in the world to experience nature. We do have Central Park, which was kind of a nice little bit, but
Yes.
you had a chance to be out among nature in various parts of the world or the country, or
Yeah.
when did you pick that up? From a young age, or
When I was very young, we used to go to the Jersey Shore, and I would walk along the ocean. I learned to swim in the ocean. And I know I've traveled cross country a few times. Yeah, continue to paint and also photographs.
You do, yeah. And now
yeah.
you're getting involved. I think, I mean, it's relevant because you are a very serious videographer.
Yeah.
And it is an art form, is it not? How long have you?
It can
How
be.
long have you been picking up on the videography as an art expression? Or it's art, but it's also news and that sort of thing. But have you, or did you do photograph before that?
Since I was a teenager, I've photographed people, places, things, abstractly, similar to my paintings.
Oh, all right, that's
Slides,
interesting.
yeah. And
Use
then
a Hasselblad, or what camera did you like? Or
I was working with the Maya Secor. Yeah, single
still
reflex.
photography.
Yeah, single reflex.
You like both black and white and color, or
Yes,
prefer?
I developed some black and white prints.
Uh-huh.
So that's a wonderful medium too.
Yeah.
But
And
what I'm really focusing in on the past 12 years is videography.
oh, has it been 12 years?
Yeah.
How did you come to videography as an art form,
Well,
or as an means of expression?
I always love movement.
Okay.
In my work, I'm
Yeah.
always looking to depict movement, so
Okay.
it was natural.
Yeah.
I love the idea of storytelling
Okay.
and adding musical soundtracks. And so now I edit and I produce.
Okay, go on. Yeah.
Yeah,
You
from the
you didn't, as they say, dabble in film before you got your videography, or like
Yeah.
16 millimeter or something like that.
a little bit of Super 8.
Super
yeah.
8, yeah.
But it was really the digital age that grabbed my attention when I realized that I could go onto the World Wide Web. That was it. I had to learn.
It truly is amazing, isn't it? That
It is.
that these things are developed so and everything like that. So it was about a dozen years ago. Can you remember how you became involved with the videography as an art form, or was there an event or a person who introduced you or something, or not?
No, it was my own curiosity
Okay.
and interest in working with community events and stories. So I actually started with public access in Kingston. Yeah, the library show for the town of Esopus.
You had a library show.
Yeah, and I know you started public access up in New Paltz.
That's right. Yeah, you might want to turn a little bit this way toward the camera. Let the camera see your full face, if you can.
Okay.
Because your camera is there, right? Okay.
Okay.
They got a little. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I got started up there, but that's 45 years ago.
45 years.
Yeah, way back. I
Yeah.
got started and that kind of thing. But this program isn't about me; it's about you. And so you remember the first video camera that you got, or?
Well,
You
yes.
graduated from still photography into video, not so much film, right?
I worked a bit in Super 8, as I said, but really it was, the camcorder.
Yeah.
And working with a broad.
And was there? We're getting reverb now in here. I don't know if that is on the thing. Oh, is that okay now, Malik? Is it okay? Okay, we were getting some reverb.
Yeah.
So that's the thing. So you got involved in that, and can you remember the first things you shot? First camera you got? Did you fall in love with it, or was it?
Yeah. I shot scenes of the city and up along the Hudson River, nature.
Nature again.
Yes, yeah. Because I love both. I love the city, So there's so much going on.
Yeah.
So many different types of people and cultures.
And I heard you say you like storytelling. Did you do any writing of story or short story or something?
I've
and
written
poetry.
Short stories,
Did you get into poetry?
Mm-hmm.
So you got a multifaceted artistic personality, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
My mother was a poet. She
Yeah.
inspired me with my first poems as well.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Did you keep a diary as a young girl?
Yes.
Do you still have
all
it?
That.
Do you still have the
I don't
diary?
know if I do. It's
Don't know if you
probably
could
gone.
find. Yeah, I know.
Gone with the wind.
Yeah, right.
But it's very good. I think that, all young people should keep a diary or a sketchbook.
I think it's a good idea.
It is.
We did an interview once, I aired it a couple of days ago, a long time ago, it was back in '86, with Mr. Isaac Asimov, great science fiction. He kept a diary all of his life, and he was really happy to have it.
Yeah.
I think that's a good idea. Okay, well then, I'm glad to see you finally got around to videography, because that brings you into Manhattan Neighborhood Network.
Right.
And so forth. You got started in Kingston. And were you doing things, storytelling? Were you doing things political?
Yeah.
Or how did you wade in terms of the use of the media?
I was really covering some of the community events there.
Okay.
The Art Society of Kingston.
Okay.
I had a sculpture exhibit throughout Kingston. So
Sculpture, you did sculpture?
Sculpture.
Your sculpture, or you did other people?
No, I've done a little bit of sculpture,
Yeah.
but this was a community event.
Uh-huh.
And there's sculptors that live in New York State that participate, and they put the sculpture throughout the city of Kingston.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah,
Good,
so I scheduled sculptors to come and stand by their work and talk to me about, what they were doing.
And were you interested in sculpture in an abstract sense of being, familiar with it's an important medium.
Yeah, I love it.
We have a very good friend, David Finn. I don't know if you happen to know, he's an older man now. He's the head of Reuter Finn, a big ad agency, or not ad, I shouldn't say, public relations.
Oh.
And
I've heard his name.
he's the greatest, as I understand it, I have to get in touch with him. He's the preeminent in the world photographer, and then not only photographer of sculpture and all the many dimensions of different forms and everything, but also being able to write vividly on the meaning of the sculpture that's being conveyed by the artist in a way that some of the artists still living say, hit the nail on the head, as they say, the meaning of sculpture. And he's written a magnus opus on sculpture from the beginning of the world. It's a major form of expression, and so you got your feet wet sort of with the video in terms of recognizing the art form of sculpture.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I love the three-dimensional quality of sculpture.
Yeah.
And it brings us into a new vision.
Yes, I think you're right. The arts are just magnificent, and you're imbued and immersed in the arts, and you are, my darling, an artist. Okay, and I can't think of a nicer thing to say about anybody and everything. And you're in touch with it. So then you're involved with that, and then you're also involved with social issues and so forth. And you were at the beginning. We wanted to talk about it because here we are in early August of 2013, and there are all these events going on that you're putting a focus on, and we want to talk about that. Yeah. You've had a place upstate, so you're able to be in the environment that you want to be in the autumn. It's so beautiful, and all time of the year. It's just so good. And
I love all the seasons.
Yeah.
I was influenced by the Impressionists and their love for painting all different seasons.
Yeah.
And so I will bring out my video camera all different seasons. I did an experimental film called Fire and Ice.
Okay.
And it's like a meditation on the frozen Hudson River.
Right. Okay.
And then I come inside, I have a wood-burning stove.
Yes.
It's up on YouTube. You can see a lot of my shorts
What do you
going
call
to
it?
YouTube.
Did you call that piece
Fire and Ice.
Fire and Ice. Okay.
And there's no words, it's all visual with a soundtrack.
Music or not?
Yeah.
Music.
Musical soundtrack.
What music did you set to the
It was a jazz musician, Peter Leach, who wrote the composition for it.
Oh, he wrote for that?
Yeah.
Major.
And also 2 other experimental films we worked on.
Oh, good for you.
Yeah,
And you did
City in Balance.
I beg your pardon?
City in Balance.
City in Balance is another. That's up on YouTube as well?
Yeah.
And so.
And Tango Noir.
Tango Noir. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And
all up on YouTube.
How good
and
for you.
And all have been in film festivals.
Good for you. That's
here
really
in New
good.
York. Yeah.
Do you work long? How long in time are those pieces? Are they 10 minutes, half hour?
Yeah, they're actually short.
Okay.
Short films. Let's see. I don't recall. All within 10 minutes.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah,
Good.
around
Yeah.
That age, yeah.
And carefully edited with the sound and everything.
Yeah,
and
it's all visual.
Yeah.
I see that vision is like a universal language.
Yes.
And then you put music to it, so there's no translation needed.
Yeah. Did you try to ever do any digital effects or massaging of the visual image through digital processes and so forth? Do you
I've
get
done
into
some
that?
of that. Yeah.
What do you think of that, or do you know?
I like it
because you can do all kinds of things now with the digital effects, can't you?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's an art form. Yeah.
I haven't worked with animation.
Yeah.
But I have taken vignettes and I juxtapose them side by side, and then I use transitions, bring them together.
And how do you edit?
Weave them together.
Do you use Final Cut, or what do you use to edit?
No, I'm working with a German-made system, a macro system, Casablanca.
Is that the name of it?
Yeah, it's called Casablanca. It stands alone, so it's not part of the internet. So it hasn't gotten a virus. It has not crashed.
Oh, that's good. that is a blessing. Yeah,
it is.
Yeah,
yes.
it is. Yeah, but it's also, is it relatively easy to work with?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, and you enjoy that, the
Oh.
editing process.
Yeah, I do.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, what about, we're veering over maybe now a little bit into your interests. You have a great interest in justice. I know that. And you're very interested in improving the human condition, all of these very human-oriented kind of orientations as part of your personality and your vision.
Well, I really feel like I want to help wake up the consciousness, and that can be done through the arts and meditation.
Yes, indeed. Yeah.
And it takes us into another, with quantum physics, they see it as another realm of consciousness using another part of our brain.
Quantum physics, you say.
Yeah.
You studied some physics and
a little
science?
bit.
Yeah. Okay, good.
Yeah. And at that point, there is not a sense of fear and anxiety. We actually can go beyond that. And since we're in a very fearful society right now, because of all the wars and just horrible events with the climate, I think it's really important for we humans to at least take part of the day to meditate or to be involved with an art, so that we can get beyond the
mundane.
The anxiety of our day-to-day life.
Now that can bring you over into what is called political concern in that, but it doesn't need it. It can be there. Have you ever been involved with a formal meditative discipline or something?
Yeah, I have.
You have.
Yeah.
I don't mean to pry. I mean,
well,
that's
the
private.
arts are.
The arts themselves.
Yeah,
okay.
They are. Yeah.
But not like.
I've studied a bit with various people, but I haven't. I don't have a teacher at this moment.
Or you went with Maharishi Yoga or any of the.
I mean, I've studied Tai Chi Chuan.
Tai Chi Chuan. Okay.
Yeah, and Qigong.
Qigong. Do you pursue it? I mean.
Yeah, every day I do a little bit.
Do you really?
Yeah,
Good for you.
It keeps me very balanced.
Right, it would, yeah. It's very, very popular in China, and it's come from there.
And right in my neighborhood, in Lower Manhattan.
Yeah.
When I walk out my door, there's Chinese people that are doing their Qigong in the morning.
Okay, and that helps you focus or center. Or,
definitely.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
That's good. Now we've been involved, and you've been involved here, and you brought it up right at the outset, so we want to get on to it because you're very involved with the Aboriginal people of New York and about the Aboriginal people of the Americas, I guess now, in terms of this two-row wampum. You brought it up and so forth, so maybe we can cut right to that. And you're very concerned about trying to let people know about possibilities for improving their condition and the human condition by paying attention to their situation, right?
That's right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe we could spell it out a little bit.
Yeah, well, what they've been doing for the past several years is developing the renewal campaign.
Mm-hmm.
And as I said, they're on the river right now, coming toward New York City.
Now, this is the Onondaga people?
The Onondaga
Maybe
Nation.
you could share who they are and all that.
Yeah,
a little bit.
they're one of the nations in the Iroquois Confederacy.
Okay, upstate New York. Right?
Yes, they're a sovereign nation above Syracuse. So they actually got onto the Mohawk River July 2nd for the first leg of this trip.
Mohawk is a tributary to the Hudson?
Yes,
Okay.
led them to the Hudson around Albany,
Mm-hmm.
and that's where they met with their allies that are now canoeing down the river on this 13-day event that comes into New York on the day of the International
Day of the Indigenous.
of the world's indigenous peoples.
Tomorrow. That would be tomorrow, the 9th of August, 2013, right? And that's amazing. And they're bringing with them, and they're bringing canoes. They're in canoes coming down the Hudson River. That's quite a thing.
It is.
And if I'm not mistaken, I don't know if this is the time, but you do have a clip or something. Is there a clip that involves those people that we might want to show? Is this a time to do it?
It's a good time.
Maybe you could, Pamela, set it up for the fellas in the booth. Set it up for the piece there. And what will we be looking?
Bring
it's
the
a clip
on of the two canoers coming in. This was the test run last year, and then think of this being multiplied by 200.
200 are involved. 200 canoes coming down.
More,
And you're going to play that now. Then, do you talk over it, or we just listen? Is it?
I can just listen. There's a soundtrack by the Spirit of Thunderheart with the Mohawk Welcome Song, a traditional drumming.
Anything
song.
else people ought to know before we run it? Maybe
no,
we run it and talk about it with you. Okay, Mally, maybe you could run that piece now then about this. It's taking place now, as a matter of fact, as we talk. Okay, here we go. Panorama Productions.
If you could bring up the soundtrack,
Could we have the
there's
sound
drumming.
in here, please?
To reach out to people throughout the spectrum of society with this effort, from young people to elders, and are trying to make the trip down the Hudson something that people throughout that range can participate in, so that there's families coming to join us, including with quite young children. My 10-year-old son will be with us for part of the journey. We've heard from a number of Native people from this region and some from further afield who see this as a tremendous opportunity to teach their children and expose their children to their culture and to the power of this journey. We're working with the American Indian Community House, the main Native organization in New York City that has a youth group that's interested in connecting with us. In the Hudson Valley, there's a group called Building Bridges that will be joining us with a couple of rowboats with teenagers joining in. So we're really excited for this to be an opportunity for young people to really learn, and also, as I said earlier, for elders also to feel very much a part of this, even if they're not able to take on the rigors of paddling day after day, but to have them join us, perhaps be with us in some of the support boats, participating in the onshore activities.
Hello.
Well, we're greeting the boaters from the Onondaga Nation who are commemorating the 400th anniversary of the treaty with the Dutch, which had two provisions, very simple and honorable provisions, to honor Mother Earth and to have mutual respect and sovereignty. Not surprisingly, there's been significant violations of the treaty, particularly fracking, which is a violation of the provision to honor Mother Earth. It's a violation of common sense and reason. But to commemorate the 400th anniversary, the Onondaga people are going to be canoeing down the Hudson to commemorate that anniversary.
As we began planning this trip and moving from this idea to concrete reality, we realized that it was important that we stop all along the way, all down the Hudson River, and meet with people in different communities as an opportunity to reach out, to educate, to invite people to join in this experience with us and join in this commitment to protecting the earth, this commitment to justice. So as we travel down the river, there will be events small and large in communities all along the way. And we'll be ending in New York City, landing there on August 9th, the UN's International Day of the World's Indigenous Peoples. And then after what we hope will be a powerful welcome from community and political leaders in New York City, we'll journey across Manhattan over to the United Nations, where we've been working with people in the UN Permanent Forum on Indigenous Issues to bring these same issues to the international arena. As a result of the work we've done over the past 15 years, working closely with the Onondaga, people here in this area often have an understanding of what has happened.
I've lived on the Onondaga Nation really all my life, and was introduced to the campaign, the idea of, Noon. I think Noon really started this and wanted to bring awareness to the things that they believe, their government was affecting us and our people and, our land together, not just Onondaga Nation's land, not just your land, it's all of our land. We will stop every night to camp. Most of our nights we have events to invite the public to educate the public, to speak about the campaign and about the treaty. That continues for 13 days before we reach New York City. Oh, we'll have speakers, and we'll offer any information. We do have smaller events. We'll have, just like this, small talks where, people can ask questions and they can, anything that they actually really want to know or haven't learned already.
Over the past 16 months, we've gone from the Onondaga Nation and Noon organizing this effort to over 80 co-sponsoring organizations, large educational institutions like Syracuse University, churches and faith communities, environmental groups, social justice organizations. And our opening event in New York City was held at the National Museum of the American Indian, where we had great support from their staff, wanting to honor this treaty, wanting to look at how they're portraying these issues within their museum structure and what their role is as part of the federal government in honoring these treaties. So we hope to continue to build those alliances and collaborations with people and organizations far and wide.
Now we come this winter, the tour. This whole discussion, our young friend, Andy Major, who's taken on the job of producing this whole event. It's getting out of hand. That's okay, it's going to be fun. But this is 1613, and not far from here, not far from where you're sitting. We're not certain where that village is at that time. But it was the Dutch who came up. First, with the happening, 1608. That's when they went as far as they could go. And then they came back again in 1613. They wanted to trade. So they wanted a clearance. They wanted something that would give them protection as they move through our country. Wanted an agreement. Our leader said at that time, we think it's a little bigger than that. We're looking at you. We've been observing you for some time, and it doesn't look like you're going home anytime too soon. Therefore, shall we not talk about how shall we regard one another? What will be our relationship? And that's when they decided how to go about and do this. So very quickly, they said, this is your boat. This is your boat with all of your people, with all of your colors, with all of your religion. This is our canoe. Very small, hard life, sparse, but nevertheless, our way of life. We didn't say religion, we said our way of life, how we live day to day. This is the river of life. So our two vessels, then, will go down the river of life side by side. In peace. See, there's three links in between. Peace, friendship, for as long as the sun rises in the east and sets in the west. For as long as the water runs downhill, and for as long as the grass grows green.
Oh, probably just a
That's your
minute.
three things. And we'll tie our vessels together. So the first meeting, and they said, how shall you know one another? What shall we call one another? And they suggested we call him Father. And our leaders discussed that for a while, and they said, well, that, as fathers denote love and responsibility, but they also have the responsibility to chastise. We think it would be better if we called one another brother. And they agreed. So if you look at any of the letters or speeches that are made by the believers, you will always see it begins with brother, which denotes equality, which is what is here on the belt. Even though at that time, very powerful, it could be twice the size on this and we would be fought by authority. But no, we're talking about equity, peace, equality. That's the first emblem here. Side by side, doesn't come together. We maintain ourselves, our rules, our laws. You maintain yours, your rules, your laws. We're tied together with peace, friendship, for as long as we have nature. And here it is. And they said, how should we keep this record? And write it, and put it down. And our leader said, in case you lose your paper, or in case it disappears, we'll keep the record here. This is how we'll keep our
I
record.
think he's fading it out.
And when and if you lose your paper, come to us and we'll
Yeah.
explain to you what that meaning is.
Okay.
1975, we were having some problems in Adirondack.
Can you, oh, here.
Okay, that's beautiful. What
Yeah.
a beautiful. So what's his
Yeah.
name?
That's Chief Oren Line. He's the faith keeper
Uh-huh.
at the Onondaga Nation.
Gorgeous, just
Yeah,
gorgeous.
yeah.
His countenance is just angelic. I mean,
Yes.
that's my impression and everything. And you're talking about the two-row wampum, and is that referring to the two that he was showing with the two
Yes.
lines? And maybe you could spell out about it for people who aren't familiar, because it
Yeah.
really is significant, the two-row wampum notion, right?
Oh, it is.
Maybe you could spell it out a little bit
Well,
for the
this
audience.
was the first peace treaty
Mm-hmm.
with the founding fathers,
Mm-hmm.
and George Washington held this wampum belt, and Benjamin Franklin held it. And they said, "This is a good idea."
But
So-
I know, I remember from grade school that Benjamin Franklin had adopted that very strongly in his thinking, and he influenced, and I don't know if Jefferson was or not, but the founding fathers were influenced,
Yes.
and it had to do with the organizational principles of the Iroquois nation that had
Yes.
democracy
That
involved,
had
and they
democracy.
learned lessons of democracy from the Iroquois.
That's right.
And I remember that from grade school, but this spells it out, and
Yeah.
the reality of what that represents, yeah.
That's right. It's the 400th anniversary
Yes.
of the agreement to this. And it's actually considered the law of the land. It's forever. It's written in our U.S. Constitution that treaties are the law of the land.
That's true, yeah.
And their poetic explanation is, as long as the sun rises and sets.
Isn't that?
Yeah, as long as the grass grows green and water goes downhill, this treaty will be law of the land.
Isn't that beautiful? And it's a great principle and everything. And we really did, to the degree that the Constitution and the founding principles of this country have meaning politically and otherwise, a good deal of that was from that inspiration from the peoples that were here.
Yes.
I think on the whole, the people of the New World were just shabbily treated by the Europeans, if you look at all into account. But
yes.
And that's a larger issue. How does a conquering people or a technologically advanced people encounter people who are less tech? How do we work that out in terms of power relationships or influence or even cultural development?
Well,
on a historical pattern is a big issue that we have to deal with.
Well,
isn't
through
it?
treaty, and this is the treaty.
Okay.
The law of the land. It's in our U.S. Constitution,
And
but
that
we've lost track of it, and so
Yeah.
that's why the renewal campaign.
Yeah.
And this is a very good time to bring this back into focus.
Yes.
As we are really suffering from our own inability to sustain ourselves as a capitalist system with a corporate rule.
Corporate rule rather than the crowned heads of Europe that used to rule for 1,000 years after Rome.
Yes.
Now they had a new thing set up, and now it's the ruling elite are the one percenters, in the words or the language of the Occupy movement, which has resonance around the world. And this is the Onondaga Nation, but there were other nations and so forth in different treaties. And it seems to me, almost without exception, they were all broken by the political system that was to evolve from the 400 years up to the present. They were treated very shabbily and are continuing to be in large measure.
Right.
Unfortunately.
Well, this is why the renewal campaign. It's an opportunity to review and renew our understanding of what our founding fathers wanted for us in this country.
I hear what your words are. I'm not as intrigued by the, yes. And there was the Enlightenment in Europe. They were learning from John Locke and the Enlightenment and that sort of thing. But on the whole, it just seems, I don't want to get off on some obiter dictum or some opinion of my own, but I think it was just some rich people, rich men. They had slaves, and they had all kinds of institutions that don't have very much for a whole lot of the least advantaged people advantage. And it continues in that pattern. You have a small plutocratic class running things, and they like that jolly well. And I don't have that much faith in their establishment of those principles. They all pledge allegiance to with almost religious fervor. And tactically, it's good to bring them to court or bring them before the bar of universal justice or something as a tactic. But the conditions that were really able to realize liberation of everybody, which would be the absolute democratic ideal, was simply not able to be achieved in 1776. It may be that that can be achieved now, meaning the 400th anniversary could bring us into connecting with that idea now in terms of the current context, which is so promising in terms of being able to liberate people, technologically advanced and so forth, just as the danger is greater, as we have weapon systems that could wipe out the entire species. So we ought to be getting some sort of a guide toward massive qualitative, not just quantitative transformation, perhaps. Yeah, I think it's blowing in the wind, don't you, all over the world?
Yeah, it is. I mean, all over the world, people are suffering severely. We have it right here in New York City. And it is a time for us to really wake up and consider what is it that we're doing.
And draw inspiration from where we can. And Tuwampum is one of the places that we can give respect to some of these traditional ideas that have resonancy over the ages, right?
Yeah, well, when I think that my ancestors left their homeland and they took a great journey, they left everything behind to have a new way of life.
Yeah.
And this actually embodies that new way of life where we're living side by side, not interfering with each other's culture, but in a spirit of cooperation.
You're talking about the spirit of the two wampum.
Yes.
Living side by side.
Yes, the two rows.
The two
Actually, yeah, they represent.
That's the ideal.
Yes.
But it's been observed in the breach, by and
Yeah.
large. I'm
Well,
afraid. Among
that's-
most of the native
true.
populations of the Americas were treated very shabbily by most all the Europeans on the whole, it seems to me.
Yeah, well, that's true, but it doesn't mean that
We can't
our
draw-
founding fathers,
Yeah.
George Washington, Benjamin Franklin, the early people who established the government here
Yeah.
wanted a new way of life. It was called democracy.
Well,
and,
yeah, but
and it didn't come from Europe. It came from understanding the Iroquois nation.
Oh, well, that's very interesting in itself. So we ought to
Yeah.
we ought to repair to the Iroquois nation, but it got somehow something got lost on the way to history because they had chattel slavery. Women couldn't vote. There were all kinds of things that were very, very, very far
Right.
from democracy.
But
as we would know.
democracy was here in the Iroquois nation.
Yeah.
Women did have a say in their government.
Yeah, but we didn't
Yeah.
follow that as a nation in the United States of America. We followed a thing of some rich white men who set up a system to benefit themselves.
Right, but
As always,
yeah.
white men had done throughout most all of history, whether it was Rome or kings of England or divine right of kings or political legitimacy assumed under any notion. It was for a few, and it's still that way now. Or at least it can be seen to be that way
It
now.
is that way now.
I
but
think it is
this
too,
is a
yeah.
renewal campaign, and there are many people of this country and all over the world looking for a transition into a sustainable way of life.
Thank you. And weren't the native peoples of this land much more involved with an ecological appreciation? There were the
Yeah.
European who forced them off their land and
Well, there were millions.
violated every
Yeah,
treaty.
There were
practically.
millions of natives that lived sustainably on the land for thousands of years.
Yes.
So actually, if we embraced what they were teaching us, I mean, when we came, the first settlers, they were starving.
Mm-hmm.
The
Indians
natives
fed them, I
yeah,
think.
the
Yeah,
natives
right,
fed
right.
them and taught them how to live
Yeah.
on this land.
Yeah, yeah.
But then they were quickly brought people who heard about the resources
Yeah.
and the greed
Yeah.
and the control and the manipulation came. But doesn't mean that our consciousness can't go beyond that
Oh, right.
material
Go beyond
level.
that to the consciousness of the indigenous people that had it right.
Yeah,
And draw
yeah,
inspiration.
yeah.
Right, absolutely right. And that has meaning into the current present moment. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, it's a good idea.
yeah.
We could draw inspiration from something other than these so-called people who rule with a plutocratic basically realpolitik by weapons systems that make it possible to conquer and benefit a few,
Right.
which has been the lot mostly of what we see. James Joyce, the great poet, had Daedalus say, "History is a nightmare," one might add, of injustice from which we're attempting to awaken, and these indigenous
Yeah.
nations might be the guide.
It has been and continues to be.
And, yeah.
Even the indigenous nations were at war at one time.
Yeah, they fought each other.
And
Some
they-
of them were more than others. Some were
Yeah.
peaceful. And we should draw from wherever we can things that relate to the needs that are so evident
But
in
they
this year,
actually
2013.
they have a story of finding their way through the peacemaker.
Mm-hmm.
And Pete Seeger just told that
God
story.
bless Pete Seeger.
Yeah.
Mm.
On Beacon on Saturday,
Mm-hmm.
there was a big event welcoming the two-row wampum renewal
Yeah.
campaign, and he told the story of the peacemaker.
Yeah.
And it can be heard online if you go to the two-row wampum website.
Two-row. What is
Yeah.
that website? Just say it here.
Oh, it's actually called Honor the Two-Row.
Oh yeah, show it up.
Here's
Here,
the
maybe let's hold it up so
poster,
they can
yeah.
see it. Maybe can they come in on this or not? Let's see if we can turn it. Yeah, they are. They're coming in on it. Let's show them.
Yeah.
Talk
Oh,
to it,
good.
darling. I'll try to
Yeah.
hold it.
Okay, it says, "We will travel down the river of life together," which is our Hudson River right now.
Right.
And this is Chief Jake Edwards,
Uh-huh.
and he's holding the wampum belts.
Uh-huh.
And this is the Unity Riders from Dakota Nation who
Yes.
have joined them.
From the Sioux.
Yeah.
Yeah, uh-huh. Yeah.
And this is their website, honorthetworow.org.
HonorTheTwoRow.org. Okay,
Yeah.
and there's all kinds of literature there.
Yes.
And so forth.
Yeah, and that will be up for a long time. This is a year-long campaign,
Good.
and there'll be teach-ins, and
Boy,
you know,
that's
there's
beautiful.
quite a bit of media coverage right now.
Good, including this. Yeah.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I thank you for putting that together. I had a great friend, Vernon Bellicor, used to be part of the American Indian Nation. Sacagawea was a friend of mine. A lot of people have been fighting this kind of
Yes.
thing. Well, listen, it's so interesting. We've got to draw inspiration where we can that
Yes.
can make this big transition that perhaps humanity is in as we come
Right.
to a time of really testing the validity of a lot of the institutions we've held with almost sacred belief and so forth that seem not to be adequate. The future either requires or even allows a new liberated capability that our system won't seem to let us realize, and so
Right.
it needs inspiration. One of the
Right.
problems and tyrannies of life, being older, I can tell you, one of the tyrannies of life is time. There's only so much time. We only have an hour. I could talk to you for 3 hours easy in a rocking chair with tea or something. But we only have a little bit of time. And it seems to me, if I'm not mistaken, you might have another clip that you might like to include in the program.
Yeah.
And maybe you could. We got about 10 minutes left. So
Okay.
maybe you could set that up and we could run that as well. And you could, as they
Yeah.
say, set it up, describe what we might be seeing.
All right. Well, we left off with Oren Lyon speaking about the two-row and showing us the wampum belt.
Right.
And then the program actually concludes with the Onondaga working youth.
Oh, it's the same tape. Or-
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a half-hour program that they asked me to put together for public access.
Okay.
And it includes the Onondaga working youth group
Okay.
who actually rode with the Unity Riders.
The Unity Riders are the drummers?
No,
no.
they are on horseback.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and they came here from the Northwest.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
They're really known around Minneapolis,
Oh, yeah,
that
right.
area, for
Happening
attending.
town in Minneapolis, yeah.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
They attend events there. And again, they have their mission of bringing forth a peaceful friendship, but telling the story of what had occurred.
Okay.
So they're here in New York State also.
Okay.
And
And the drummers, you have a group
yes.
of drummers, what are they called?
yeah, the
they-
Spirit of Thunderheart.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
They've been to our place.
That's
They're
right.
very good. Yeah, right.
Yeah, they've been
Okay.
performing here in New York City and along the Hudson River Valley.
But this, which we will see, will be about, what, 3 or 4 minutes or something like that?
Yes, yes.
And do we know, I guess, then, Malik, if you could set that up and cue up that piece, then we could pump it in here too, as well as letting the people in the audience see it. And be 3 or 4 minutes of footage, if you can. Here we go. Okay. Pump it in here if you can, Malik. Thank you.
By themselves, and the elders came together by themselves, and we created 2 declarations, and we came together, we spoke about them. And today we'd like to present to you that youth declaration that was made among the youth that convened in Haudenosaunee territory.
Okay, it's called the Indigenous Youth Declaration, Kindling a Fire. We as Indigenous youth have gathered on the Haudenosaunee territory for 6 days to share our achievements and future prospects on peace and unity. We reflected on the effects of historical trauma and the path towards decolonization for Indigenous youth of the Americas. A common sense of history binds us, while oral tradition, lived experiences, refound knowledge, and gathered wisdom build unity and purpose among us. We are connected and responsible for 7 generations. The following statement calls for immediate action. As Indigenous youth leaders, we will set the agenda, we will move it forward, we will do it now, and we will monitor and measure its progress. Our collective minds and hearts hereby declare the following a living document. 1. Past, present, and future exploitation of our culture, customs, traditions, and environment are no longer acceptable. 2. Indigenous languages are our inalienable rites of passage. They are our first language. They are integral to instilling our identity and must be accredited, implemented, and accepted without interference. 3. Young leaders must be represented at all gatherings to reflect, network, debate, and to make decisions on matters affecting us and that of our communities. 4. Youth have a right to create opportunities so that we can live a healthy traditional lifestyle, to nurture our talents, whether they are traditional, artistic, athletic, academic. 5. Youth have a right and responsibility to practice a traditional way of life. Whereas guardians, we implore ourselves to take action to protect, preserve, and restore Mother Earth and all creation, and to free our people from hindrance and or prosecution.
In Haudenosaunee, we're asked to come declare this declaration before you today. The theme of this year's UN has to do mainly with lands and resources and territories for us, the Indigenous people. But ironically enough, our own territories as Haudenosaunee people are severely segregated by that American and Canadian border. And so it's kind of ironic that we're here today discussing those sort of issues. The Blackfoot people that I met, the youthful people that we met, they have this funny saying among them where they say, "We didn't cross the border crossed us." And I like to share that with everybody.
Process into creating it. And I'd like to talk about us as youth. I know we're celebrating a declaration that was created for all Indigenous people, but I think this is a unique situation where as youth we came together. And I think sometimes it's forgotten that as youth we do have a voice in our communities. And I think that it is very important to recognize that voice, because all the decisions that everyone here is making and that people, leaders in the community are making, will affect us the most. We will be taking over your jobs someday, but everything that happens now will be passed down to us, and that's why we found it so important to put in number 3 that we should be represented at all gatherings to show our opinions. And because we do like to have fun, we are youth, but we do also have opinions, and we do also have concerns about our people. We do also have things that that fears about the future. We also have opinions that need to be expressed, that need to be recognized. And as Spirit of the Youth Working Group, we decided to, after the summit, to take this into action and to carry on the message of this declaration to communities across Turtle Island. And to do this, we took the task of carrying on the Unity Run. And this will be our 3rd year into the Unity Run. And we will be going to Virginia, and we will be coming through here in late July. Oh, August 9th, we're leaving? Oh, August 9th. Oh yeah, we'll be through New York to go to Virginia. And this will be our 3rd year going for the Unity Run to share the message of unity among Indigenous youth and all Indigenous people, because it is that is what we need. We need to be united. We need more of this. We need more of people coming together and expressing our concerns.
Little girl with her hand on her hip. It was beautiful. That's really beautiful.
Yes.
Thanks a lot for having put that. Got some reverb in it again. Thanks a lot for that. It was beautiful.
Welcome.
And there is inspiration to be drawn from these traditional wisdom schools and so forth. I guess we could draw it from a lot of those sessions because we really need it. But from the Indigenous people And I really thank you a lot for this, and so timely, right? Because
Yeah, it's good to see that the youth are carrying it on.
Yeah.
And are good spokespeople.
Yeah.
Showing up at these events. And on August 9th,
Mm-hmm.
they will return to the plaza outside the UN. And then August 10th, they'll be along the Hudson River at the World Financial District
Okay.
from 11 to 5 with their elders speaking and drumming, dancing, singing, sharing their stories.
Well, I think that's appropriate they be there, because that's where a lot of the shenanigans are going on, it seems to me, particularly when they let them give $16 trillion to bail those people out that have not yet been able to come up with a system that can, apparently, it seems increasing numbers, there are failures in terms of being able to come up with a system that can be relevant to the great promise of benefit for the human society and overcoming the limitations of the context in which they've been operating. And so they ought to be all drawing challenge of how we're going to organize things in a way that can avoid the worst possibilities of our capability and realize the best possibilities of our collective capability, which is the challenge of this time, which had Isaac Asimov say, this is the defining generation. This may be the maturity of the final generation in terms of realizing a major qualitative transformation. And thanks so very much,
you're welcome.
darling, for putting all of this together and bringing that nation to us.
Thank you for having me on.
My pleasure, my great good pleasure. It's your pleasure.
It's a year-long celebration.
Yes, it'll continue.
Lots of teach-ins, They ask the public to come and attend and also bring it to their community centers, to their churches. The churches are now involved.
Yeah, the churches are getting involved, and other major institutions. The UN has been brought in by some people. Long struggle getting that done. And so it's all to be celebrated that way. And it's been your pleasure to have the perceptions of, boy, it's our pleasure to welcome to MNN major producer, very serious videographer and artist of real concern for the major issues that confront humanity, and that's Pamela Timmins, and she has a program called the Clearwater Nations. It's a clue. You kind of like this fellow Pete Seeger, I think.
Yes.
Don't we all?
A real hero. 94 years young.
Yeah,
still
God bless,
performing,
still
telling
putting, and
stories,
the spirit of Woody Guthrie and all that kind of stuff. There's been a lot of shoulders that we stand on top of. And thank you for having brought it together in a way that's so contemporarily important in terms of condition.
Well, to be continued. I'm still videotaping. And,
we'll keep continued videotaping. Again, Paula, Pamela, thank you very much. Thanks for viewing.
Thanks, Harold.
We'll be coming back again tomorrow. That's it for this particular program. One more time, Pamela, thank you for all the good work and for such a very, very, very well-led life. Thank you. See you tomorrow. We'll be coming back tomorrow. Thank you for viewing.
All right.
Boom.
Good.
Okay. Well, let's go there.